Multifamily Mindset
podcast. Think bigger.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome once again to the MFM podcast. My name is Dallas Pruitt, and I am a growth mindset and impact expert. I've been the resident mindset consultant here at MFM for quite some time now, and I'm also the founder of the Live Life Mission. And on today's episode, just like we do every Thursday, we're going to dive into the story that was shared earlier in the week with Michelle and Cindy. Michelle Hollandez's story was one of inspiration. It was one that really is not that uncommon for those who find success in the space of multifamily, but also success across the board, because success leaves clues, success leaves patterns. And I want to point out some really important things, some really cool things about Michelle and her story. One of the really cool things about Michelle's story is she is a mom, and she has had a career, and she's done everything that she's done, and she continues to be what appears to be a great mother and a great human being and finding a way to make it all happen in the multifamily space still. I know that we hear stories like this, and you, I'm sure, find yourself like I used to back when I was starting my journey, not in multifamily, but in the world of entrepreneurship, where it was like, how have they figured it out? Like, why can't I figure it out? And today I want to hopefully give you some weapons, some information, and some strategies to be able to help you continue to figure out the how on your end. And because the answer really is simple. It's a matter of prioritization. Simply put, Michelle, if you listen closely to her story, and again, it's hard to extract everything in a short amount of time within a 20 to 25-minute window, 30-minute window. Heck, a 45-minute window would be hard to extract all the details of a successful story, but it's simply been that important to Michelle. Multifamily and finding success in this space has simply been that important that she has planned her days not around it, but to flow with that priority in conjunction with all of her other priorities. Anyone can figure it out. And it is relative. What I mean is, on the business side of things, a side hustle, a career pivot, big change, positive change in the right direction of where you feel called to go, where you feel inspired to move. It simply has to become so ingrained that you can no longer avoid it. It simply has to become such a priority that you build your days around it. And the truth is, you will make time for what you care about most. This is why I teach the value of honesty so heavily in what I do as a coach and consultant, is because honesty is a precursor to taking ownership of your situation. So I want to do that. I want to weaponize everybody who's listening to today's episode with some better questions that you can ask yourself, really a better question to ask yourself, so that, so that you can be honest with yourself and open up the door to your true priorities. And the better question I want to ask is simply like, where are you currently allocating your time? I know it sounds maybe too simple, but what I want you to do is I want you to draft this up on a piece of paper. I want you to pull out a piece of paper right after today's episode, unless you're driving or whatever, when you get into the office, when you get back to your home office on a lunch break. And I want you to get that piece of paper out, ask yourself the question, and then get granular with it. And you will start to see the patterns of where your true priorities are. Start to write them all out. Where is your energy and your time going every single day? Look for patterns, and if you see something you don't like when things start to take life on that piece of paper, well then it's time to become way more intentional about making drastic change. Now, drastic change doesn't happen overnight. It's chipped away at day by day, little by little. It's making small adjustments and diminishing certain things out of, or removing certain things out of your day to day and reallocating your time and your energy. And again, drastic change doesn't happen overnight. It's something that is strategic. It happens by design, not by luck. And here's what I found out on my journey is when you really dial your priorities in, you find that most things out there in the world that maybe are even currently a part of your life, many of them are not important. I had a close mentor. I'll share a quick story with you. I had a close mentor share with me years ago. This was at the very beginning of my entrepreneurial journey. He came to my home and he showed up with a book that transformed my perspective. It was called The 5-Day Weekend. And he said, well, one, I'm skipping over a really important detail. I had just shared with him this awesome vision that I had for a journal company, for a consultant company, for a service that I wanted to provide the world as an educator, master teacher, and helping companies and individuals develop growth mindsets so they can go out and lead massively fulfilling, successful lives. So shortly after sharing this with him, he shows up and he says, hey, Dallas, if you keep God, family, and then your work in that order, he was very specific, your priorities, your top 3 priorities, then you cannot fail. You cannot fail. He was specifically talking to that vision that I had just shared with him for my business. And he went out even further to say that I have zero doubt you will go out and find success. I have zero doubt that this plant logo that I had just written on his whiteboard, he was like, this will be recognizable. You will transform people's lives. You will help them transform their own lives. And he instilled so much belief in me. But I also took everything he said to heart and I started to implement it into my life. And it's been interesting because during time segments of major progress in my journey, it's always when I have kept those things in priority or those priorities in check. It's in those time segments where I'm keeping God, my family, and then work as my top 3 priorities, designing my days and my weeks around those things, dialing things in there, and weeding out all the unessential, because again, the majority of it is unessential, that I have seen and experienced the most progress and also had the most impact in the work that I do. And that brings me a ton of joy. In fact, that brings me the most joy in my life. I mean, I am a very fulfilled person. That is a major driver for me in the work that I do. And I know many of you can relate that, business is not just a money-making venture for me. Business is a purpose-driven thing for me. And I wanted to share that with you just for whatever reason. As I was listening to Michelle's story, it's something that stood out. I have found this out, my friends. I've found that God really wants you to win. And there are a lot of people who really want you to win. And God and these people, those that get it, they really set you up to win when you do the right things. You set yourself up to win when you do the right things. And no one wants you to succeed more than God. There's just a set of universal laws that he has put in place that have to be lived by in order to reach the levels of success that you desire, that you and I both desire. And one of those is the skill set of prioritization and keeping the main thing the main thing. Michelle exemplified this really well in her story. In the proper cadence as well, God, family, business. I can totally relate. I'm not in her day-to-day, but I can probably bet that she has very little time for partying, for big crazy trips every single weekend and other things like this. It's not to say she doesn't do them. It's not to say that she doesn't have a life. It's to say that she keeps her priorities in check for where she's currently at with her goals, with her vision, and where she is headed long term. Planning, to-do lists, daily reflection, weekly reflection, prioritization, time blocking. She referenced many of these things, and they are extremely overlooked vehicles for better progress. Why? Because people want to rush things. They want hacks, they want secrets, they want to skip steps. And the powerful stuff is that small stuff that so many people strive to skip. It is this stuff that drives better results, both in the short game and the long game. Again, I invite all of you listeners to take a look at where you are currently allocating your time and your energy. Go through that little exercise that I shared at the beginning. Be honest with yourself. It's great to be ambitious. What is hard is being ambitious and then not aligning your actions with those ambitions. That is cause for heartache. That is cause for letdown. That is cause for frustration. My friends, I want to share my gratitude for Michelle and for Cindy for sharing their stories on the show this past week. And thank you always for tuning in here to the podcast. Continue to rate and review the show, and we will see you guys back here again next week.
Multifamily Mindset.
Podcast. Think bigger.